and I'm going to let him just sort of start off with an introduction of a little bit who he is. I did let them know you're a local guy,
Oh yeah.
from the York area, so that's pretty cool that now you're in San Diego as well. So
Yeah.
all right, go ahead.
So I might repeat some things that you already said, but yeah, so I'm Tony's cousin, and I'm from York, Pennsylvania, originally to Dallastown High School. And, I went to school for computer science at Penn State. And after I graduated there, I had this job in insurance for many years doing software, and it was a very normal job. And after like 10 years of that, I was kind of bored, and I was like, I want to do something interesting and new. And that was about like 3 years ago now that I actually left my job and started to take this course online called Fast AI. And it's just a MOOC, anybody can take it. You guys can take it. And they actually really don't have too many prerequisites to take it. I mean, you just have to have a bit of a programming background and algebra and stuff. And what they're teaching is artificial intelligence, deep learning. It's the stuff that they apparently use to generate this Holocaust stories stuff, for example. But you can do all kinds of things with it. Images. You can transform images like I do with colorization. You can do all sorts of funky things with audio. You can have it understand text. There's all sorts of things you can do with AI these days. And then the course itself took like 2 months, and then I decided to do a sort of capstone project for it. And I just basically thought, out of this list I made over time, I was like, colorization looks cool. I might try that. I have a funky idea for that. And then 6 weeks later, after I came up with that idea, I made something that somehow worked, and I posted online. And I didn't expect much of a reaction for it, but it turned out to be really popular. Like I kind of got this sinking feeling in my stomach after I saw Boing Boing, the website Boing Boing. Cory Doctorow wrote a bit about it. And from that moment on, I was like, oh, okay, this is going to be a little bit bigger than I imagined. And, 3 years later, I'm still doing this sort of stuff. Image colorization, video colorization, fixing scratches in photos now, restoring colors in photos, and all that stuff I'm selling to myheritage.com. I'm independent of them, but they're licensing it. So is that a good summary, you think? Oh, Tony, I can't hear
and
you.
Actually, if you can even go deeper, as like if you want to sort of tell them even the business end of it, and go into AI, like maybe go in and say how it works, like show them the example of and what you had to, you don't have to go into the programming, but of what you had to do in the time.
To make it work, like what I actually did to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
so
how did you apply AI? Like how did that work for you?
Yeah. So I guess really the thing to establish here is the motivation to use AI, which is, first of all, I want to say, when people use the term AI, it has a lot of baggage in the term. But, really, it's not that smart. It's just, I would more call it like pattern recognition more than anything. It's like, which is a very, very powerful thing to get to a computer. We didn't really have that previously in any significant way prior to 10 years ago. But, after, 10 years ago, computers started getting really good at being able to do things right, like recognize things in images. And that's a very powerful capability. And with that capability, you can, do other things like recognize what's in an image and figure out what color it should be. And that's what I do. Now, the reason why you want to use artificial intelligence as opposed to like just trying to program it is just because I simply can't figure out how to make a program by myself, with the exact code saying that this is a face, colored this way, this is a hand colored this way, this is a apple colored this way. It sounds like you should be able to do that, but it turns out that that's pretty much impossible. So the AI approach, you have this black box. You basically know how it learns and stuff, and you know how to train it, but what it's actually learning and figuring out for you, you just don't know, basically. Which is both the biggest strength and the biggest weakness of it, because it's kind of hard to control. For example, if you don't know exactly what it's doing, so that can be incredibly frustrating. But it can learn a whole bunch of stuff that you wouldn't be able to figure out yourself. Now, another thing about that, though, is it takes a lot of computation to have it actually learn. So I have this, I didn't start out this way, but with the money I got from the company, I reinvested into a better computer. But I have this computer in my living room, dining room, that has like the 4 very expensive graphics cards, and I have and like the electricity it pulls is like humongous. I mean, our electric bill is like humongous right now. But I have that running with those 4 GPUs like all the time training, and it takes, even with all that compute power, it takes typically like 2 weeks to train a model.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that's pretty much the best computer you could possibly not only buy and still run it at home, so I'm really pushing the limits with this stuff. I mean, considering, because then you consider what Google and Facebook are doing. Well, they can, they have all these super computers, right? Which I obviously don't have access to. I don't have those kind of resources, but this stuff can easily get really expensive. I mean, just electricity and stuff like that. It can cost millions of dollars to run some of these bigger models that they're talking about these days.
Wow.
But I have more humble resources, so I had to make do with what I have, and be a little more clever with limited resources.
Right. Hey, if anyone has any comments or questions while we're talking, just sort of butt in, sort of reach out and just say something, ask. So, but yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I wasn't going to say much. Go ahead. Are you sort of, what are your thoughts on that? Are you done with that area?
Oh, I mean, the only other thing, yeah, I guess I can explain a little bit what training actually consists of.
Yeah.
So, just take colorization, for example, right? So, think of it as you have the before image, which would be black and white, and the after image, which would be the color image, right? So easy. So you need to somehow come up with before and after. Well, colorization is a little bit easier in that department. I mean, the other things I do can get pretty tricky, but colorization is pretty straightforward to come up with this before and afters, which is to put it simply, you convert a normal modern color image into black and white manually. You're desaturating the image, and then you just do that to millions of images. So you got millions of modern images, and you're trying to make them look old, basically, and that's your before. And then you're saying you're giving your model the before image to train it, and you say you're basically saying turn this into the after image. and that's your example that you want it to mimic. So it just keeps doing that. You keep giving it the before image, and it tries to guess what it should look like after. And then you say, okay, you're getting a little bit closer and a little bit closer, and it adjusts accordingly as it goes along. It just keeps, doing these little adjustments all over the place until it finally arrives at the solution. And like I said, this whole process takes 2 weeks usually at this point.
You can show us some examples. I didn't go into any examples at all.
Oh, yeah.
So, if you want to pull up either Deoldify or MyHeritage, either one.
Yeah, I could run.
And talk about why you decided to do this, Jason. Why'd you decide to do this?
Yeah, hold on.
And then quit your real job.
Yeah, I was bored with insurance after 10 years. You think that would happen quicker, but that's basically it. Let's see. Yeah, I'm pulling up a demo thing. Hold on. All right. All right, so I can share my screen on this.
Yep.
Yeah, where is that?
On the bottom, it should be.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
It should be green.
Yeah, I see that.
And then make sure you hit the 2 buttons at the bottom left that say share sound and optimize for video clip before you hit share.
Oh, yeah, good job. Yeah, okay. Thanks. So, yeah, I totally would have missed that.
Most people do.
Yeah. Okay, are you still there?
Yep.
Some reason I can't see you. Okay, that's weird. This is all very weird to me. Okay, so yeah, I'm actually showing you the stuff I work on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, oh yeah, this is a really good example actually. So this is going to take a little bit to process because I'm running on Windows and it's a little bit slower. But this kind of does a combination of the things because like I said, I do scratch removal, colorization, color restoration, right? So I'm just gonna run this. I call this my unified processor. This is my whole goal here is to basically say, given any photo that you have, right? That it'll figure out what it needs to do, whether it's remove scratches or colorize or restore the photo or whatever. And it doesn't take any specification from the user. So it's basically I'm trying to replace Photoshop here is the gist of it. So I'll pull up some other examples then, but here, here's my first example. So on the left is the original and on the right is it fixed the photo. See how I removed the scratches and then kind of spiced up the colors a bit. Oh, are you there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had my mic off and I can see you, but you can't see me. If
yeah, I can't see you.
Upper right corner of your screen, do you have an option for view?
Oh, view, where would that be?
Upper right corner, or maybe view options in the middle. I don't know if you have that or only because maybe I am.
Yeah, it doesn't look like you do, but no, this is good.
Okay, yeah. I'll keep my
I just want to make sure you can hear me. Okay, so you can see this example there, right?
Yeah, yep.
Yeah. So that's combining in this case color restoration and then scratch removal, and you can see it removed all the scratches pretty successfully. So I'm just gonna I literally just have Reddit up and I'm gonna pull up some additional examples.
Okay.
Because I don't know, this is my favorite thing I have is and this is a very in progress sort of thing, but see that it restored the colors here because that's what needed to be done. So again, it figured out based on the image you gave it, what it could do with it. Let me see if there's another example. And I'm really literally just doing this on the fly. And so therefore, I don't even know if these are going to like turn out okay, honestly. Most of them should these days. Let's see. I kind of want to get a good colorization one for you. That might be good. This might turn out embarrassing. Who knows? That turned out good. So you see the Texaco sign got colored in this case.
Sky, everything really.
Yeah. And the tree and blah, blah, blah. So that's colorization. Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised about the Texaco sign. That's impressing me, honestly.
Even the red at the pump.
Yeah, and the tiles here, you see that the red and the I think
yellowish, yeah,
stuff. Let's see if we can get one more here, or one or two or three. I don't know. Yeah, that turned out okay, except yeah, a little bit of a mistake, but yeah, so they're cooking and they're making food and stuff. Anything else here? Let's see. Kind of want to show actually want to show a more challenging one because that's really what I'm trying to do here is fix actually problematic photos,
like ones that have been torn or poked through or
yeah. Okay, so I have serious doubts that this one's going to look 100%, but let's try it. So this is actually like a photo that somebody requested be fixed on r/estoration restoration. And yeah, I guess it fixed it pretty well. It's not perfect for sure. You can see like didn't completely fill in the crack there. But yeah, I mean, so in this case, I tried to restore the colors and remove the scratches a bit. There's some other things I'm actually just starting today to, I want to restore details a little bit more. And that's my next project actually. So like, making this
actually that did pretty good with, I mean, it seemed like if the scratch was on the person, it really took care of it. Like sort of the ones that may be more of a bend, it seems like it just shaded it out.
Yeah, this is, I mean, honestly, this is an okay example. It's not the best example of it working because I can show you like if you look closer, there's a few mistakes. Like so this is just one of those things.
Oh, it took that
out.
Okay.
Yeah, I took that out. I thought that was a scratch. But you think about it, right? It's a tough problem, right? Right. It's a very fine line between what's this white line here versus what's this white line here,
Right.
And that's kind of the challenge. And honestly, it's going to be many, many years before this stuff is ever perfect. I've been able to make a lot of headway, and yeah, it's like hand grew here too. So yeah, this one's a tough one. But yeah, I mean, so what it's trying to do here is trying to look at the context of the what's around the crack, and it has to basically make up the details in there, because this is not like a deterministic thing per se. It's more like an artistic decision almost, like especially, I mean, it depends, there's something that just makes sense, like this should probably be skin for sure. But there's just some things that ultimately it's just kind of making up the details. Like, is there going to be a part here, for example, or is it going to be another strand of hair? That sort of thing. And then it has a sense of what faces should look like, so that helps. But that's the sort of fuzzy logic that it's learning that I just couldn't possibly come up with like an explicit program for. Here, I'll try one more here. This looks like it might turn out interesting too. And you can see that this is powerful, right? Like,
So
this
these
is,
are ones that you've never played with before, really?
no,
You're just picking them in.
yeah, I like, I like trying to be as honest as possible, and I'm literally just choosing things that I, because I did not prepare for this. So, yeah, so and yeah, and it has some mistakes and it has some successes, my whole goal here is that it actually restores your photo as opposed to destroys it.
Yeah, really.
But yeah, like I said, it's a work in progress, as you can see. So does that pretty much demonstrate what I'm doing, you think?
Yeah. Do you want to go on to your Deoldify on Twitter or anything? Show a couple of examples.
Oh yeah, to show better examples.
Well, just to see, yeah, to show, and then even maybe My Heritage, that if somebody would want to use it, are they still doing like the free trial or whatever? Do you know?
Oh, well, okay, yeah. So you
But
should
you
be able
can,
to.
someone can just use it, right?
Yeah, you should. Like, let me see if I can just pull that up.
Your basic one is open, right?
Uh, yeah, yeah. Okay, so I'll do that first.
All right. Does anyone
So,
have questions here? Something you
How
want to
does it
say?
know like what color it should be in the picture?
yeah, that's a really good question. Because that's a very nuanced answer. So you think about this, right? Like, there's some things in the world that are pretty consistent in colors, right? Like, the sky is blue, grass is green, wood is wood colored, right? Skin is, consistent, just different shades, but it's actually the same hue, basically. So, there's a lot of things that are known quantities, right? So that's really more a matter of memorization than anything else. And that in and of itself is a pretty big task, right?
But you had to input that for it to recognize
Well,
all of those patterns.
well, I don't have like a database or anything like that where I'm typing away, apples are red and trees. So I'm not even telling the program what trees are, what grasses are, what people are, and stuff like that. Not explicitly. That's the thing. What I have here is a black box that I know how it learns, and I say, well, I mean, I did design the black box, but I don't know what it's learning. Anyway, all I do is I say, okay, I'm going to give you a curriculum, right? And the curriculum is the millions, literally millions of images that have all sorts of examples, right? So the apples are going to be in there, the trees, the skies, the people. And by the way, you have to be careful to actually provide it examples. Let's take people as a really good example, right? If you have all white people, and this has been a problem in these data sets in the past, then it's only going to learn how to do white people, right? And which is a problem, right? So you have to be careful about it. You have to select with representation in mind of what you're trying to learn. So in the case of people, you want to represent all sorts of shades of people. And in the case of anything in general, like if you wanted to know what a Texaco sign looks like, well, there should probably be a Texaco sign in there, right? And so on. So that, that's basically it. Now, all that being said, the thing is that, that plenty of people have like one-off things everywhere, right? There's one-off things of like, or very few examples of like, the clothing they're wearing, maybe they made a custom earring or or the car is one of a kind, or there's not too many of them, or clothing is all sorts of colors, and some people make their own clothing. What I'm trying to get at though is like, it's literally impossible to memorize everything. You're just not going to do it. There's like there's so many things out there that you can't even know. I mean, it's not, I mean, like it's hard enough to take a modern picture and say, what the clothing is that somebody's wearing, the kind of research you'd have to do. I don't, you may not even be successful then with modern photos if it was black and white. Now you're talking about like photos from like 50 or 100 years ago. And, they even less so were, they weren't writing down this information somewhere and stuff. And we didn't have the color photos back then either, right? 100 years ago to tell us. So, basically there's a whole bunch of unknowable things. So you have to guess, right? The model has to guess. And there's a lot of ways to do that. Mine tends to be more conservative because we're delivering something that a whole bunch of people are using. And if you're not conservative with color choice, then it can get pretty crazy and weird. So mine tends to default on more boring. So you'll see a lot of blues, browns, and purples and stuff like that.
So Jason, like question. So like when you see an error, so we saw the error that it cut out this, like the point of the steeple of the house or whatever it was going up to the weather vane or whatever it was. Now, do you specifically go in and change that picture, or would you input other pictures that have something similar like that?
I mean,
or not bother at all?
Yeah, so more towards the latter idea, where you look at that, you say, okay, that's a problem, I'm going to try to fix it, right? So again, going back to the, if it's not colorizing people other than white correctly, then you go back and say, okay, how do I represent this data better? In the case of that sort of photo, I would look at that photo and say, more generally speaking, I would look at it and say, okay, what kind of damage is going on here? Because that photo had some unique qualities to it. Because I was thinking that was probably more the problem than anything. Like, because the thing in the background that the building that it was incorrectly removing the top of, I don't think that's, I'm pretty sure that's not uncommon in my data set, that general sort of thing. So I don't think that's the problem. I would say more it's like, okay, what kind of damage is going on in that photo that is not dealing with recognizing things in the photo correctly? So it's a very generalized sort of approach. And you say, okay, I'm going to try to improve that, try to make it so that the model can learn to handle those situations better.
Right. Okay. All right. Does anyone else have a question before he gives us a couple of examples? All right. Yeah, do you want to pop on to and show some from Dealdify or any of them? My Heritage, either way.
Yeah.
Probably Dealdify has probably the most, right, on your Twitter.
Well,
or where?
yeah. So okay, you want me to show the Twitter?
Whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Whatever.
Actually, I'll go to our website first.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't actually even know if I went to your website, to be honest.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So I'll share that screen again.
Yep.
Headlines there. So yeah, Dealdify.ai. So we have basically cherry picked examples here of some of our favorite photos. So this is like, let me see if I can zoom this in a little bit. There we go. yeah, so it can do art too, which I think is pretty cool. As you can see, it's doing a pretty good job of the details there. These were all originally black and white. So this is what I'm showing you here is all colorizations. So here's a good example of like, it knows like what fruits and vegetables are. So this is a pretty easy thing for it to do, honestly, is to pick out those are apples, and that's I guess broccoli and artichokes and so on. So it does a good job with that sort of stuff. And there's even like a Florida oranges sign up here with orange juice, and I actually got that.
Yeah.
Huh? Yeah.
No, the pictures really came out. The
Yeah.
color.
So yeah, that's the sort of thing that really I like, is when it picks out, like, because that's actually like a drawing of the stuff. That's the sort of stuff I really like. It actually picks up on abstractions like that, and that's how it was able to colorize the drawing in the previous photo. Oh, here's another example. This is really abstract art, right? Yet I really feel like it did a good job of depicting like a fall foliage situation here.
Yeah.
I just that tickles me, because it's like it actually looks artistic to me.
Right.
And again, that was really abstract. And here's a more conventional photo from the early 1900s. I just noticed something, actually, that there's a mistake there, and we've been showcasing this for like 2 years. But there's a zombie hand right there. Yep. That happens. Like, just sometimes it's not gonna figure out that hand's a hand for whatever reason. I think in this case it's probably like the lighting,
Right. Yeah, because it's in that shadow, sort of.
Yeah.
Or the smoke or whatever.
Yeah. So yeah, it's imperfect. I still like the picture, but yeah, definitely imperfect. This is one of my favorites, actually. This is Billie Holiday with her dog, Mister. Oops, go back. So interesting thing here, right? This is a really great. Why is it going all of a sudden? It's picking out the color here, and the like this pill bottle there. It picked out sensible colors for them. So I just want to point that out, because it's like, oh, and this random sticker up here. So there's plenty of these objects that, even though it clearly, it's never seen that color before in any of the data I gave it. I can tell you that much. The pill thing back there and the sticker there, those are probably all being seen for the very first time here. Yet it picked rather interesting colors for them, right? And I will say this: I don't think it's completely. It isn't completely random. I can tell you that much, because it keeps coming up with the same solution. So it's not memorizing it, what those objects are, but it's it's also not random. So what I think is contrary to what most people say about black and white images. There are some instances where you can actually figure out what the color of something is just by looking at the shades and what the probably like the lighting quality here and stuff like that. I think there's just a combination of things going on there that it actually winds up figuring out what the color should be. But those are special cases. And I notice it's more like with man-made objects than anything else. But it does happen. It's an interesting thing, and I don't think that I think I'm probably one of the few people who have actually figured that out, honestly. Next one, got, again, like some things it's never seen here. The clothing that they're wearing, but it picked
That's
up.
what I was thinking. I'm like, did you train it to recognize cats with clothing?
No. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cats with clothing pictures are hard to come by, honestly. But picked out, I think, relatively interesting colors for the clothing and for the, the ornamental, whatever these are right here, the ornamental balls here and stuff. The hay looks good. The tree is green as you expect. Some natives. And, I like this one because in the background, again, it's a very abstract thing, but it made it look pretty good, I think, with the tree and whatnot.
And this was a black and white photo?
Yeah, these were all black and white photos before. Okay. And then, a cowboy on a horse from the late 1800s made his gloves orange, which I think is interesting. I don't think it's seen as gloves in a training set before. Again, it hasn't seen any of these things in this exact configuration before. That's the whole point, right? Is, it's supposed to be robust. Decided to paint this train red and make everybody else zombies, I guess. Oh, and this is one of my favorites here, because it just picked a whole bunch of interesting colors here, like the red head, and it gets the vegetables good. But yeah, I made like this thingy awning here. Yeah, awning the word. Interesting, I would say. It does bricks in an appropriate color. I just think it's cool. This is a Titanic picture, actually. Interesting thing here is it made the map. And again, that's a unique map. It was probably only in the Titanic, I imagine. But it made the map interesting colors, like green here and red for Australia, green for Greenland, orange, I guess, here for Russia, Soviet Union, I guess, at the time. Oh, and yeah, this is from China from over 100 years ago. Yeah, things it knows, apples and flowers. I'm really keen on trying to get flowers right too, because I think that makes a big difference in photos. So I give it lots of examples of flowers.
Even the color on the dress.
Oh yeah, it's interesting at least, right?
Right.
Yeah, and then here's another one, like this candle here, even though I'm pretty sure I never trained it on, and this, whatever this is here, it keeps colorizing these the same color, which is again interesting because I know it's never seen things like this before. You can barely recognize what there's. I mean, it's just a candle, right? I mean, that's about all you can surmise there. I think it's like a Yankee candle or something like that, but it's always yellow according to the model. I don't know why, but yeah, it does figure out some interesting things. Let's see. Yeah, and that's it for the site. So those are more like our premium colorizations, like that's Civil War, by the way.
So if if somebody wanted to try it, do they do it on here, or can they do you have any program on here?
Not on our website. So okay. we exclusively I get that. Yeah, I got that right. We exclusively license this stuff to MyHeritage. So basically the idea here is that so this is interesting to think about as a business model, because I don't know of anybody else that's doing this in AI. If any of you guys are interested in trying to follow this sort of entrepreneurial path. So what we wound up realizing is that, if we wanted to do a startup and not do the whole VC thing, because we really didn't want to take other people's money and be slaves and didn't want to take loans and whatnot. I don't know why I was doing that language.
I saw that. I was like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. Anyway, so very gradually came to realization that the most ideal situation for me and my business partner, it's only two of us working out of our homes. We live across the street from each other on the beach. So, we gradually realized we didn't want to make a big startup of this, didn't want to hire a bunch of people, just wanted to keep this as simple as possible. And also just, knowing that, yeah, we could make a website or an app like everybody else does and, pour a whole bunch of resources into that. And again, that would require probably hiring people and getting VC money and stuff. But we're like, or we can really think carefully about what our actual value proposition here is. And our value proposition is strictly the research. Like everything else is like stuff that other people can do, basically, whether it's the ML engineering, to make this stuff work on a server, for example, websites, of course, many people do websites, apps, obviously a lot of people do apps, but the core technology behind it is what we're actually selling here. We just considered everything else to be a distraction. So we kind of, quite frankly, got very lucky in this because we were about ready to throw in the towel. We were running out of savings. As I said, we didn't take money from anybody. So I already talked to my employer, my former employer. I was like, hey, can I get a job lined up here? And then a day after that, we got contacted by MyHeritage, and they asked us to license our stuff. And so that's where we began with our relationship with them back in early 2020. And it's been a really good thing. It's very simple. We give them, the research that we do, and it's not very nicely packaged, honestly. And they package it up and turn it into an app and a website. And it's part of their, so MyHeritage, just so everybody's caught up on this, is like ancestry.com, but it's popular in Europe and the Middle East. So it's their version of ancestry.com. So they have all the genealogy stuff and whatnot. But they also have now, photo stuff. And I'll just point this out before I continue. You might have seen this craze earlier this year. Shoot. Sorry. So yeah, this is a good example. Yeah, let me turn that off. So earlier this year, there was this craze about deep nostalgia, which is taking photos and animating their faces, or it can even be, in this case, like paintings. So that was like a big thing earlier this year. Well, that was MyHeritage. We didn't do that. We basically do everything else, like the colorization and scratch removal and pretty much everything else. But this other company did the facial animation things that you're seeing here. And I know that got really popular online. So I thought maybe that would ring a bell with some people.
And I think that's sort of like the movement part is also, and I don't know if they actually used that person's real movement and figured that out to sort of train it, or if that was a generic training.
No, it's very generic. Like basically they have the stock set of like 20 different animations.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that were done by other actors and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And I think you can maybe even do custom ones now or something. I'm not sure about that. Don't quote me on that. But theoretically, you could just do like whatever facial movements you wanted the photo person to do, and then they would map that to the photo. Okay. So as a result, if you actually know the person that was in the photo and you animate it, like if you take living people and animate them, they look basically very wrong. And I'd like to bring up this phrase again. It's very uncanny valley. um, Meaning again, it doesn't look quite right.
Mhm.
So,
Well,
but
I think that the AI one for the Holocaust, I think they tried to use, as far as I know, they tried to use the mannerisms of what they could find of those individuals, because there's only a handful, I think, that they were able to do it with, because they just didn't have the information to be able to create.
yeah, that's very interesting. Now I'd have to say, if that's what they were doing, then what you're really talking about there is a good mix of manual labor and throwing AI into the mix,
Mm-hmm.
which that's actually a really good aside, I think, because one of the big controversies with my work, probably the biggest, because there was like a Wired article on this and whatnot, and they made a big deal about it. But basically, as I told you guys, the colorizations aren't 100% accurate, right? Like it just can't know everything.
Mm-hmm.
The way I like to phrase the problem is, well, even if a person's doing it manually, they can't get all the stuff right. And they can do an earnest effort in trying to do the research, but it won't be 100% accurate. But regardless, I think people can move it a lot further along, for a number of reasons than the AI can by itself. So that's what I suggest ultimately, if as the solution to that, because I don't think the AI is going to do everything 100% anytime soon. It's just not going to be there. But what I really believe in is the marriage of artists and AI as a tool.
Do you think so are now like what we would know as CGI and AI together?
Say that again?
Like computer generated images, so just the whole idea of CGI and AI, are those now to sort of work hand in hand?
It could, yeah. I mean,
or could it?
Yeah, you could. I mean,
Okay.
especially in that case, I'd say animations and maybe even
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking.
And you can make things look a lot more realistic potentially that way.
I'm thinking like movement more realistic, and actions and facial expressions, even if it's not like a real face.
Definitely.
Many of our characters might not have a nose or whatever.
Yeah. So there's a lot of like very subtle things that the AI could pick up on, right? That could be mapped. And by the way, I mean this whole concept goes very, very far. I mean, you can improve weather forecasts with that sort of approach. For example, like combining traditional and AI, the best of both worlds. As again, that's generally what I advocate. Is I mean, that's not what we have here. Here, it's just doing all the work itself, and you get the automated result. But that's because not everybody's a Photoshop expert, right? And nor does everybody want to do that. Like take the time. They just want a quick result, and you saw how quick the results are from my stuff. But if you're an artist, let me if you're an artist putting out works of colorization that you're going to sell in a book, for example. And this is my favorite thing to come out of the Oldify project is this guy, John Breslin in Ireland. I worked together with them to, start with AI colorizations. And then he took it many steps further by he would correct this Irish flag here, for example, right? So this is old Ireland in color. There's, actually 2 books now. They were pretty big hits, like the biggest book in December last year. in Ireland. And you just made some artistic decisions here that I know the AI clearly didn't. So, but he did use the AI to fill in the gaps, right? Like he didn't have to color in all this grass, and he didn't have to do all the skin, for example, right? So that's where I really think the true strength in AI is because again, AI is a bit of a misnomer. It's actually quite limited. It's just it's a tool, right? And it gets you far, but not all the way.
Right.
Sorry, that was a bit of a detour. Are there questions before I go on?
Anyone have questions here? Anyone? No? All right, yeah. Go ahead, show us a few more things and then probably wrap up. We have just a few more minutes, so.
Yeah, sure. So the option to lay out the options that you have. So MyHeritage, just to be clear, this is where our best work is. You can try a few for free if you go to this URL here. It's myheritage.com/incolor. Pretty easy to remember, but
are you getting any residuals from this, like people who then use it, or you just got a flat sum and that's it?
we did the flat sum.
Okay.
And the reason why is because it just made things a lot easier for everybody, in terms of like, how do you actually bill for that? And
did they ever suggest anything different, and that's what you guys decided, or?
They wanted the flat rate, and we actually readily agreed with it because we were like,
be done.
Yeah,
just
well,
be done.
more than anything, it was because I know it might sound foolish on the surface, but it was more of a long-term thinking thing where we're like, okay, we really want to make sure that this is used in the way that we want it to be used, which is liberally. We don't want to make it so that they're
because you created this as an open source to begin with.
Yeah. It's kind of thinking along those lines, even though we're charging for it, but with as little restriction as possible, basically. Because we just want people to use it, and we want it to be ubiquitous. So MyHeritage has our all of our latest work with the scratch removal, the restoration, color restoration, as you see here. That's a autochrome and colorization. And you can go on this URL, you get like 10 photos for free, and you can upload there's some private stuff. And you can upload images from your desktop. Let me see. I'm on a different browser than I usually use, so
you don't know what's on there. You're like, I don't know if I should open that picture file.
I had to figure out where my stuff was for a second, but you can upload images here, and try it out yourself. So let me see. I guess I'll try this one. So you can try like 10 photos. Oh, yeah, you do have to put in your information first.
Sign up.
Yeah, sorry about that. But anyways, it is still free for the first 10. Then but you do have to put in an account, and then after that, it is admittedly like a bit of a fee per year. It's like I don't want to quote it, but it's like over 200 a year.
I did some and this is something that if you have like an old article in the paper, an old picture in the paper. So my band director died, and there was just like in my old books from the 90s, early 90s, I had picture, like literally folded up newspaper articles that were black and white. Jason, if you're done, you can stop sharing your screen. And then
I was gonna.
Are you gonna say something? Okay, show something. Yeah.
I was just gonna show one more thing quick, but
go ahead. And it colored everything right because it was grass, it was sky. Our band uniforms were light blue, dark blue, and red.
Oh, got that right.
White. Everything came out. If you look some of like where the sun was the sun rays were coming down, that got a little hazed out, but that, you didn't even see it. So it was just sort of cool to be able to do that, and then I printed them off and sent them to him.
Awesome. Yeah, so I just wanted to show one more thing quick. It's the so this is the open source project. This is the thing that kind of started it all, and this was launched like over like 3 years ago now. So this, I mean, what's on here at this point is about 2.5 years old. So yeah, so just to find it, I just googled Deoldify. It's like not our website, but the GitHub right here. Now you might be intimidated by GitHub if you're not a coder, but it does have links here at the pretty close to the top. And the first one here is this, and it's just it's a free UI to, you just upload an image, and you can do this as many times as you want. And it's like I said, it's just the free open source version, and I'd say the open source version is still pretty decent. I mean, it's not as good as my latest work, obviously, but it works, right?
Yeah.
So
That's great.
and then now we don't have that equivalent for video. So if you're interested in doing video, that would involve doing this collab thing, which is a little bit more intimidating. But I will say there is a video here that will walk you through how to use that. But basically the gist of this video colorizer is that down here, once you get down here, you can plug in YouTube URLs and stuff and Vimeo and whatnot, and it'll automatically colorize the videos for you.
Okay.
So it's pretty cool.
That is cool.
So it is actually pretty easy to use once you get past the intimidation factor of running a notebook. But you're basically just like clicking play on each of these cells and working your way down. That's basically what you're actually doing. Yeah, so that's the options to how to use it if you want to use it. I'll stop sharing now. So yeah, what do you want to do now?
Yeah, does anyone, I mean, I'm good. What, any specific questions? What are your thoughts on the idea of even changing a black and white picture to color?
Oh, you mean like ethical questions?
Ethical,
or?
yeah. Because I mean, we went through, and class too, we went through that, like how these classic books are now trying to be digitized.
Mm-hmm.
So some people are like, well, yeah, so it continues on, but then there's no royalties.
Oh, got it.
And there is sort of like the thing for that.
Well, okay, so as far as royalties are concerned, I mean, personally, myself, if we're putting anything out these days for legal reasons, we definitely go for the stuff like that's on Wikipedia.commons that's actually public domain.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we do there. I mean, just to be clear on that. I mean, I was demoing stuff on Reddit, but we're not trying to make money off that. But anyway, I would say probably the biggest thing that's brought up as an ethical question about colorizing is, this whole idea that you could be giving the wrong impression of what the past actually looked like.
Mm-hmm.
Now,
right.
Because I will be very candid here. There was this Twitter thread that got very popular, like 6 months or a year ago, where this lady took a very colorful image from 100 years ago. It was like an autochrome early color photo. It was very beautiful. She removed the color from it, and then ran it through Deoldify, and it looked like crap, basically. And she's like, "This is why AI colorization is bad," because it gives you the wrong impression.
Did she try to put it in as the partial color? Like, was it already partially colored and she desaturated it?
It was fully color.
It was fully colored.
Desaturated. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So basically, just didn't know that the guy's clothing was this bright blue, and I mean there was all
What was
sorts
her
of
point of
colors.
doing it though? Like, why was she being a bitch about it? Like, why would you go that far to prove something wrong, I guess, or that it didn't work or whatever?
So I'll say a few things. I mean, I left Twitter because it tends to get angry over a lot of things. I mean, that is what Twitter's about, but so in my defense, you know, I'd never claimed, you know, I've always, you know, like that whole spiel I gave about, I think people should be involved because it won't get everything right. If you're trying to present it in terms of like a real historical record, right? That then people should be involved, and even then it's not going to be perfect. That's been my stance even way before that. It wasn't a reaction to that or anything like that. So I do think there's an ethical way forward. When we first put this my heritage stuff out, we came up with this watermark. Now people hate the watermark, but the watermark we put there in the bottom left corner, and we do this in the open source project too, is this little palette that looks like a painting palette. And the whole point of it is to be a universal indication that this was modified by AI.
Right.
Now, I gave the option of letting people opt out of it. I put it in by default, but they can opt out of it because I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to force the ethical decision down their throats, but because they'll hate me for it, but I'll give them the option to do it themselves. And it turns out most people turn it off, which I'm not surprised about, honestly, but it's like, what do you do?
Right.
These are all very kind of difficult questions. Now, all that being said, in the case of the Twitter thing, is like, it admittedly was like one rather extreme example. There wasn't much context in terms of like, well, it actually does do well in a lot of these other examples, and then also there's the context of, we have thought about this carefully, but this is kind of where I got burnt with journalists a bit. Honestly, I hate to say that, because I would tell like the Wired journalists one thing, and they put something else. They would omit the stuff that was important to this debate.
Right.
Like that we knew it was important. We have these ways that we think it should be handled. Well, they didn't talk about that. They just made us look like the callous technophiliacs, that were, you just want to make money and zoom, go AI, that sort of thing.
Right.
So it's just, this whole thing's just going to be misrepresented and distorted in general if you look it up, honestly.
Well, hopefully it doesn't go as extreme as like Facebook and just the idea of what I think its original purpose was to what it has what it's created.
What do you mean? Sorry.
Well, just the idea that what originally Facebook was on the surface, if you want to say, to now the whole idea of marketing and selling information, which has always been, we've already talked about this in class, but that deep. Hopefully it doesn't get that deep for you with the controversy.
Oh, no, I don't. I'm not too worried about that. I mean, I would say the deep nostalgia stuff that I showed you guys, to me, that's a little bit more controversial, honestly. I think they're good guys. I think they're actually pretty clear, good ways to go about the ethical questions about this stuff, about the colorization. And just to be clear, I do kind of draw a line as to what I want to work on and not. I don't want to do stuff that is highly questionable. I just don't think the colorization stuff is one of them. I think there are pretty clear ways to handle the thing properly, and for example, if you're putting this stuff in if you somehow were putting this stuff in a textbook and presenting it as historical reconstruction, well, you better be careful about what you're claiming there, right?
Mhm.
But that's
Right.
that's more on the person making the textbook, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
you know,
It should be.
yeah. I mean, again, there's only so much I can do to put guardrails up,
Right.
Now, I guess another question is, how much responsibility do I have to prevent those problems from happening in the first place?
Mhm.
I just, I take this stance of we provide tools. Admittedly, it's kind of like saying people kill people, not guns. but, uh, I don't know any other way to approach it, honestly. I just don't think we should go as far as, uh, you know, not making it just because of those questions, because I don't,
Right. Agree.
yeah.
Yeah. All right. Does anyone have any questions here before we wrap up or anything to say? Anyone? All right. Well, then I want to thank Jason. I'll be here for a minute, Jason.
Okay.
But otherwise, I will see y'all on Thursday. So,
Thanks for coming, guys.
see ya.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Jason.
Yeah, thanks.
And here, let me stop
Hey.
recording.